Hello, everyone. Welcome to, I think it's the 13th. Uh, bad luck. Right, the 13th weekly call for the merge request report widgets working group. I'll start right away. Sort of an announcement. Thanks, Scott, for preparing our example MR. And for anyone who might not have been here last week, Scott added it to the header of the agenda document. So if you ever forget it, go there to find it, or just bookmark it or make it your homepage. I don't mind. The second part, I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the level 2 content support has been merged. So the way that the texts are added are much more consistent with what we discussed. So basically, the consuming widgets don't have to no longer have the burden of handling utility classes. They can just abide to the supported variations of the text that we support, and that makes for a very much consistent, and also we will be able to update the utility classes on a central location instead of having to go to all the consuming widgets. So this is a very good step forward. And as an improvement already discussed, Thomas Randolph was addressing one of the bugs that Gina had created a while ago. He's going to be even improving it further to have a much more structured response so that we don't have to do like a text with a break, with a line break element in the middle. So we'll be much more resilient in that perspective. So iteration. So that's good. Yeah, moving on to discussion items. Gina.
I had a couple things that when we were looking at the new MR that Scott created, you can see all of the widgets there all together. So another product designer had come to that and found some things that I wanted to point out. My question is, I listed all these different issues that came from that conversation with the other designer, but I'm not sure if this work is considered part of the working group, like if this should be implemented for the core component, or if it's just specific to certain widgets. So I'm bringing it up, and if you want, I can just go through each one, whatever would be most helpful.
So since we have those two efforts, one to add the core support, the other is for the consuming widgets that Scott and Peyton are looking into, I feel like it's worthwhile discussing. Particularly if there's any changes that needed to be done centrally, one of the people will take, and if it's for the consuming, other people will take them. So maybe just briefly talk through them to make sure that we understand them.
Sure. Okay. And I'll share my screen so it's a little bit easier. So this first one about status icons is really just in the case that, in the case that we have something that has no degraded metrics, we're showing this like warning icon still. And I'm not sure if that's the same case for other widgets because we only have status checks showing here. But in this case, we could just show this success icon. So I wasn't sure if this was maybe just for browser and load performance, or if it was affecting more widgets. And this is the second one. So whenever we have metric breakdown, I'm calling this thing a metric breakdown, but I think it's level 1 subtext is actually what it's called. Whenever we have metrics that have a count of 0, we don't have to show those in the breakdown. I also am not sure, again, if this is for all widgets or not. So another thing to keep in mind. And then the last one.
So Gina, a question on that, just so I understand. So if there's a zero degradation, we don't display it at all. We would just display 5 same and 2 improved.
Yeah, you only display 5 same and 2 improved. Only the ones that have like a count to it, basically.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. The last one is actually, I'm assuming that this will have to be brought in per widget, but the text that shows here, for example, like the level 1 text, it's not always consistent. Like you can see here, test metrics, 7 changes, and then test metrics detected 4 changes. I was trying to audit the different wordings that we use today, and there's just specific ones that need to be updated. So I'm assuming that that is like, you have to pull that in per widget to be able to fix it.
This is really good stuff. I might ping Amy Qualls. She's our technical writer, and she's great at coming up with documentation for guidance. So there might be an opportunity there for updating the documentation or something to help the future authors of widgets in how to come up with that copy. But this work is great. So you're right, it would have to be updated each one of the widgets, but there's probably some guidance lessons that we can take out of here of this very early stage of these widgets. So I will do that. It's not how I write my name. Okay, I will ping our technical writer. Okay, this is good stuff. I feel like all of these fall under the consuming widgets. Scott, would be just would these come up in prioritization, or how do we find someone to handle these? You're muted.
Sorry,
Classic.
I was looking at a different screen. I couldn't see myself. There we go. Weird. All right. Yeah, we can, if the issues are created, we can prioritize them accordingly. I don't know how high of priority they are, but we can work with UX to figure out, because we only have one front engineer right now, so it's just choosing very carefully which issues we take on.
Absolutely, Scott, understandable. And given the milestone that we're currently facing, it makes sense. So I would say that if they were at the core level, we would take them as a higher priority. Since at the consuming level, it's mostly like taking the lessons that we can take to guide the future development. I see that Gina agrees. So yeah, Scott, whenever you have capacity for it, that's great. All right, this is great stuff. Gina, thank you so much for this. And I think Pedro really has a great eye for it. Was Pedro, right, that caught this?
Yeah.
He has a great eye for this. So I guess we'll just nag him every now and again to double check our work. But what makes me really happy to see is that we're not even like at the end of the support, and we're already trimming the edges, if that makes sense, right? And that's remarkable to see. So thank you, Gina. Thank you, Pedro, for highlighting this. This is great. Tim.
Yeah, it's me. If you still remember me, my face and myself.
We do. We missed you.
Couple of very full weeks, especially at the time, with at some points 3 stand-ups on a daily basis, exactly at those timeframes. Medium fund. We are currently reducing stand-ups, which is a good sign. So I had time to join quite easily. The first and biggest thing I wanted to leave here is seeing it now in action and playing with it and clicking on it and seeing it for real is, yeah, it's great progress. Thanks everybody, and thanks for the great work. This is such an improvement. It is visible right away compared to what we have right now. Yeah, just wanted to let everyone know about my first impression there. Nothing to discuss. Then something came to my mind, so I was premature with writing nothing to discuss. So is it planned to unfold and click? So clicking anywhere on a bar, because right now it felt really heavy to, okay, where is the unfold button, move over, etc. So is that anywhere planned?
Gina, do you know anything if that's been discussed on the UX side?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I know that we're tracking the amount of times that thing is clicked at least. So that may give us insight into if we need to make the area larger. I'll check though. I'll get with some other UXers and ask them.
Thanks, Gina. Tim, I will just like +1 that. I think in the past, that was the first thing I noticed as well. So I definitely feel validated. So thanks for voicing it. The one thing that I thought at the time is that we can't just make the whole thing a link because those actions might have multiple, but we can totally default it. And we did that for the repository file browser, where we default the whole row, but you can have multiple links there. So there's definitely some challenges there for the market, but it's totally doable for if we have JavaScript involved. So keen to implement it. I'll prioritize that if the UX so chooses. Here's the benefit. It can be done at the core level. So all the consuming widgets will immediately benefit from it, which is great to see.
And I totally agree. It doesn't need to be a link or anything. It might be even totally fine, if not even changing the mouse cursor and just having an on-click handler, because I'm also like a person. I need to find
absolutely
to open. And one thing that, because this is something I'm thinking about and maybe targeting this also in the next quarter, is we have now real time. As you know, we have in issues, we have the possibility to do real-time updates through WebSocket. So any data that is in real time changed can update, which means that we also need to think about new UI patterns of updating data to make it obvious, okay, there is something that has just changed, and not just like, and you are like, something moved. So that we think about also that and maybe incorporate. I think with pipelines especially, this might be a nice and interesting topic, because if we are able to put WebSockets in there and we can really show and count up, for example, the number of tests that are done, might be a different pattern for, okay, this has changed from green or from running to red, maybe, or to green. So this might be a different pattern. So I think the earlier we incorporate something into a complete new pattern, the better.
Are you speaking to both like the loading states that we would have, and maybe a state to show that stuff has actually updated? Does that make sense?
So that is really now even further, because this is now for issues we already have it. So we have then a constant connection to the server, and the server can then basically tell the page, hey, the assignee has just changed, and it pops up. There is not even, we are loading the initial data, but we are also listening to any change in the background. So it would be even without a loading thing, because we have a constant WebSockets connection to the server.
Okay.
So the topic of not real time, we discussed it as the polling, but real time would be even better. There's two things there. One is that I don't think at the time, I think the consensus was that we wouldn't have a specific polling mechanism at the core to start off with. Probably the first widget to need it would implement it, and then eventually would absorb it into the core if it makes sense to standardize it. Especially because of that thing, like we can port the polling code because we don't have the real-time infrastructure yet, but then we would evolve it into the real-time with WebSockets and stuff. The UI pattern is something that we can totally support at the core level, because right now I think we would probably either replace the whole thing or not at all. So we would have to have some ways of diffing or something like that. So we definitely need to come up with a better way of doing those updates. I'm going to create an issue for discussing, because I was looking through the epic and I don't see any issue about polling or real time. We have had discussions here and there about, oh wait, we do have it, support polling. So I will put the issue in the agenda and we can discuss it a little bit further. I know that Phil already there, Scott already. So let's take the discussion into that issue, updating with this particular aspect of having a UI way of highlighting updates. That was hard to say. But thanks, Phil.
We have real time by now. So real time is activated on .com. Correct. It works. Issue is using it already. I'm currently looking for the Slack thread. Even one of our community contributors who is working on service desk stuff he loves that stuff. So he's building it now to anything that he finds.
Awesome.
And he's so excited. He's always pushing videos. That's why I'm looking for it.
I'm going to change the title to say real time so that he finds it and builds it.
Yeah, from the tickets.
Good stuff. Yeah, what I meant was that, so correct me if I'm wrong, we do have support for the real time, but we still have to have some backend implementation of it, right?
Yes, but it's fairly easy. If you have GraphQL as a basis, then you can
Go to subscriptions.
get, yeah, exactly. Have subscriptions pretty easy as far
That's
as
good news. Yep. It would be
I
nice
think
if
a lot
we
of
could
these
rewrite them.
widgets
go ahead.
are still dependent on REST endpoints. So I don't know if we can easily switch them over.
But that would be the reason, right, Scott? Like that would be great.
Yep.
But it's important to understand like the nature of these widgets. I feel like you have a good point. Like the CI would probably be the best example, but I don't think the CI part of the widget is included on the report widgets. It's a separate part. It's where we call the merge widget. So that's a separate part of this infrastructure that it's built on their own. We would totally respect the UI pattern that is devised by this working group. So whatever the UX framework decides to be the update, we'll respect that on the other part. But since this is the report widgets, the CI wouldn't be covered. The other ones, Scott, do you run multiple checks on like browser performance and load performance, or that's just once? That doesn't update very often, does it?
No, I don't think it updates. So we just there's no polling on those.
On those,
And the current ones. They probably should update when the pipeline completes, but I don't think there's any implementation of that. Then
that would be a moment to leverage real time if we could. But let's discuss that on that issue and bring that forward. It's a great topic. Anything else, Tim?
I posted a link Slack thread where lead ticket is showing how it's currently done on the issue side, where he's incorporating that on service desk, for example. And there it's just switches without any thing. So we might simply think about it. I know that I used a React library long time ago where you were able to have like a pattern where you could say, okay, I'm changing this value with an animation system. So there was a very basic behavior on it that simply said, okay, I'm not changing this value immediately. I will wait for 300 milliseconds because I'm injecting a CSS animation class, which fades the thing out for 300 milliseconds. I change the value, I fade it in again. And then you had a very easy way to simply say like in Vue, how are they called? I'm forgetting all the terms. Long day, English is hard. So yeah, we have those patterns on top that we can set and those behaviors. And if I think we might be able to do the same thing so that we say, okay, this label, if a value is changed after first load, then we can apply an animation pattern, whatever it is, for example, or a flash or a color change or flying stars or a rainbow. So
yeah, I like the color rainbow. That would be nice. Good. This is good stuff. Any other topics? We're at the end of the agenda. Anything else you want to discuss? All right, then I'm guessing next week will probably be, should we skip the next calls? 23rd. I won't be here. Should we skip? What do you think? Should we still take them if we have any? Should we just skip them?
We can just skip them. I'm not going to be here either.
Yeah, then I'm alone, so I will be still here on the 23rd.
Yeah, so even if you are, it will be a very lonely experience. So we'll skip both of the next weeks and we'll see each other in the new year. Thank you everyone for the contributions. Like Tim said, it is pretty remarkable to start seeing this thing come into fruition. And we're going to be kicking it off in the new year at high speeds. So thanks everyone and have a wonderful holidays and have a wonderful entry in the new year.
You too. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.